Hello and welcome. My name's Adam, and this is our Ask the Experts live sessions. So today we are joined by Ian and Paren from Creative Triangle, who are going to give you some information of what it's really like to be a graphic designer. So let's bring them on. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the comments and we'll be answering as we go along. All right, welcome guys.
Welcome, hi.
Hi. So we'll jump straight into it with the first question. So what does a graphic designer do?
Oh, that's a varied question. That's a varied question, I suppose. It depends on where you're working for, I suppose, and what kind of industry. Me and Ian and myself have kind of graduated a while ago now, so we kind of primarily trained as print designers. So there's different avenues you can kind of explore in terms of print, digital, social. But the crux of it is the nicest way I can put it is make things look better. As one of the quotes I've got told. But it's almost like making information accessible and being able to cohesively understand and see it in a format and a way that could be distributed towards the audience. I suppose is the concept.
At its core, it's visual communication, and if you look at it as communication, then that's where you sort of like transcend what vessel you deliver that information in. Like Paren said, you're either a print designer, possibly web designer, or social media designer, but you know the essence and the heart of what we're trying to do is get the message across in a way that people can either understand it and interpret it properly.
Cool. In your day-to-day roles, what sort of tasks do you have to come up with? Because I think a lot of people will just imagine you're sort of sat at a computer coming up with drawings, but I think there's a lot more that goes into it, isn't there? There's you sort of meet with clients, get briefs, things like that. Can you sort of give us an explanation on sort of a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. I suppose there's a lot of admin involved in terms of how you even just upkeep your design and how you store your items and assets. And just it's lovely, obviously, coming up with the designs, but there's obviously feedback from clients, amends, and also the back end stuff of doing things and sorting out between clients and copywriters and images. There's a whole kind of aspect of putting it all together, and that can take weeks and months depending on the size of the project. So there is a lot of background kind of elements to it. Not as much as there is the fun kind of aspect. You're constantly in communication with your clients, and clients can change their mind and also change the project as well. So yeah, there's a varied amount of things. There's a lot of meetings. There's time to do amends. There's time to come up with more ideas. It can change, and I suppose it's quite nice having a different day every day, I suppose. But you kind of roughly know what you're going to be doing almost, because it's normally planned into the studio.
I'd say like to kind of like counterbalance the computer work equally as important. It's probably the briefing stage at the beginning, and that's we're trying to interpret what the client wants and what their deliverables are. From there, we kind of go through the ideas generation phase, be it sketchbooks or research, and then fast forward to your sort of like computer-based screen design. But definitely, I think like you always focus on how good the end product looks, but I think it's also good to get off to a good start as well.
Sweet. So a lot of people who are into or looking to become graphic designers like yourselves are probably wondering what qualifications they need to do it. What qualifications do you guys have? How did you get into it?
I'll confess. So I kind of took a bit more of an academic route. So I did GCSEs and I did my 3 A levels, and then I was doing graphic design as one of my A levels, and I did one of my GCSEs, and had a really good design teacher at my college who really pushed forward to do an art foundation course. At the time, I wasn't thinking of doing something like that because I really wanted to go straight to degree level, and she and my other design teacher kind of really brought me around to the fact of having a year to be able to do this course that would really enable you to kind of see what you want to do in the future. So I did that at Montfort University, my art foundation course, and then I progressed on to Sheffield Hallam University to do graphic design as a degree. So that education-wise, that's the kind of route I went down. But I would say definitely that art foundation course was one of probably the best academic years that I've ever done. Really insightful, and it was really worth it, definitely.
Yeah, so for me, I'm an academic route designer as well, and I started same GCSEs, but I went from GCSEs to like a year doing graphic design, interior design, night courses, and then I went straight onto foundation course from there. So I was able to sort of leapfrog the A level phase. But foundation course was great for me because I went into that thinking that I wanted to be study fine art. But I think the commercial aspect of graphic design was really appealing to me as well. So I kind of like took my creative skills and then sort of looked at how they would work in the graphic design industry. And then from my foundation course, I went on to do the graphic design degree at Coventry University as well, and then into the industry after that. But yeah, as important as studying is, I still think that there's craft is also really important. And I think if you're not necessarily studying design, there's still plenty of places that you can go to sort of really understand process and material and craft, and especially things like drawing and really looking at how ideas can come together.
Nice. That leads on to my next question quite nicely, actually, Ian. So since both of you went through the academic route, do you believe that it's, from your experience, do you believe it's a necessity that you go to university to become a graphic designer?
I personally don't think it is. For me, university was brilliant. It's great in terms of life skills, learning lessons. But I think, like Ian's saying, if you really want to do something and you put your heart and soul into it, in terms, especially with design, and pick things up, be kind of ruthless in the way you kind of attack it, I feel like you can really bypass that and be able to do art foundation course and be able to start even as a junior, etc., to kind of build yourself up and learn these skills. I'd say a lot of my skills I kind of learned post university, especially in terms of the print section of design, because university was a bit less client focused and more self project taught. So I think it's a massive learning curve going to university, where you're kind of doing a lot of projects for yourself or about brands that you like or anything like that, to actually working for a client and then putting all your kind of feelings aside and being able to deliver for them on the project that they want you to.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think, is it a necessity? No. I think at the time when I did it, I probably felt like it was a necessity, and it definitely paid. Having a degree on my CV played a massive role in getting me into the door of my first junior design position. Not to say that I think that it wouldn't have been possible without it. I think maybe what in many ways, probably for me, I was probably holding myself back and being less proactive, because I thought that just because I had the degree, it would open the door. Therefore, I think that if you didn't have the degree, but you're proactive in your approach, I think that those doors are still going to be open to you. It was important understanding, like echoing Paren's comments about how you sort of interpret the client and that working relationship as well. But I also think that they are things that are learned a lot quicker when you're actually working as a designer or doing an internship at a design agency.
Definitely. Okay. Just to go on yours as well, I got a job based on my degree show. So for me, it was very valuable because I hadn't really thought about what I was going to do. I was really concentrating on my final project. So I was very lucky in that sense. But I know a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my students that were working with me didn't get a job straight away and unemployed for quite some time. So it's definitely worth thinking about what you want to do after as well. It comes up very fast, unfortunately. 3 years kind of go in an instant, and then before you know, you're back at home and you're thinking, what are you going to do with the next stage of your life?
Nice.
I think you kind of look at that as almost like a platform to get yourself out there with like a recognized qualification. And it's like, if you're not going to go down that route, then what other way can you get yourself out there? And what is going to be your platform, and what's going to be your selling point, and how are you going to do it? I think it's definitely achievable.
Nice, thank you guys. So the next question we've got is, what skills do you need most to succeed in your industry? What would you say?
Well, that's good. I suppose the biggest one for me was like putting your own personal opinions aside to the design, especially because at the end of the day, we know throughout university, throughout your education, you kind of taught to do what you think you want to do and what you think is best, but really it's what you think is best for your client and what you think is best for the job. So it's going that stage further and thinking outside of what you think looks nice, because everyone wants to do nice, pretty pictures and be an artist, but at the end of the day, that's not what your client may want. So I feel like to be able to do that, you need to listen. So I'd say definitely listen and understand, interpret, and be able to be adaptable as well. Because I feel like I think we're discussing before, in this generation, everything's changing at an instant. There's so many different platforms. You need to be available and embrace them, and not be stuck behind. You need to be knowing about it. So I suppose definitely, in terms of in terms of design, you definitely need to be involved in what's happening and what's coming up in the world. So ear to the ground, I suppose.
Yeah, I get what Paren's saying about the ideas thing, and I kind of like to think of it as being passionately detached. And by that, I mean you need to be so excited about something that you're able to take the product and sell it to the client, but also detached enough from it that when it doesn't go down well or it needs to be changed, you're not hung up on the fact that somebody's had a personal attack on your idea. And other sort of like more practical skills, like software proficiency, a good understanding of how computer design kind of comes together, presentation skills, attention to detail, proofreading, generally there's quite a lot of like day-to-day skills that were almost like a prerequisite going into a design job.
Yeah, I suppose back on that, any admin kind of things as well, how to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint, because you're going to get stuff and you're going to get information in a variety of forms. So a basic IT knowledge is kind of needed as well. And English and maths is really needed, again, because if you're doing invoicing or if you're writing an email to a stakeholder or someone like that, you need to obviously use the correct language.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And listen,
oh no, go in.
I was going to say, and listening. I just spoke over you when I said it. So, listening skills are important when you stand next to Paren.
I was just going to echo the English and maths, because I don't think a lot of people realize how, because when you're in school, you do English and maths and you sort of think, how is this going to help me in later life? They really do come up in everyday situations and you don't actually realize you're using them until you're doing it. That's great. So the next question we've got is more about your experience. So did you have any work experience in the industry before the jobs that you've got now in Creative Triangle?
So I did, yeah. So my personal experience, I've come from a family of printers. So both my uncles have got printing presses. So I've kind of grown up in a print environment throughout my life. And then I've done various, even during work experience times at agencies in Leicester. And then when I graduated, I got a role in-house at a publishing company, which I stayed at for 2.5 years. And then I moved to another agency, which I stayed for another 2.5 years. And then I've been at this current agency for 8 years now, coming in April.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was the first sort of graphic designer in my family. My family sort of come from a background of like aviation engineering, so there was a technical sort of design element there. But when I went to university to study art and design, I think I was the first, I believe, to sort of take that approach. Straight from uni, I went into Codemasters, video game software, testing games for like 10 months there. So that was like my first job after uni whilst I was looking. But for me, no, it was new. I guess it was a new career path to choose for me.
Nice. Did you guys have any work experience in any other industries? Like, did you have any other jobs leading up to graphic design, or as well as your graphic design jobs, or was it always graphic design for both of you?
Throughout uni, I worked in retail, I suppose. So that's that taught me some valuable lessons.
The customer service skills, I bet, have.
Oh, definitely, definitely
come up.
I think meeting people as well. You meet people and you understand how to work with colleagues and behave, I suppose, as well. Get along with everyone. I think that teaches you that, and the university teaches you that as well. You're not good. At the end of the day, you can't really choose who you work with or for. So it's just one of them things you have to kind of all get along and have a platform that you can do that.
Yeah, I worked throughout university, I kind of worked in retail just to kind of see me buy and have a bit of money, and that it was great. It was a great time. You had lots of friends from the workplace, lots of friends from university, and that was a great period. But with regards to design, though, I had my degree and my study, and I had my friends that were also artists, and a social circle. But at that time, no one was really making money out of art, and it was more a case of trying to figure out how we were going to get careers at the end of the day.
It's usually the fun part, though.
Yeah.
So the next question we've got is actually from someone watching. So Victoria has asked, what has been your favorite graphic design project you have worked on during your career so far?
Ooh.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one, yeah.
I'll go quickly in one, just because I enjoyed working on this with Paren, and it was branding we did for a company called Capital Concrete, who are a concrete company. And what was quite abstract about this is that we were designing graphics and how they would work based on a concrete mixer. And that's something that I'd never really thought of when I was at uni that I'd be doing. I thought I'd be designing record covers. But it was still a really, really nice branding client with a great project, with a great client who really wanted to get involved in the project. And it was also one of those jobs that in the studio, it was quite a collaborative effort with everybody being involved right down to the final stage. And for me, the outcome of that me and Paren had a trip down to Wembley IKEA, and we saw the Capital Concrete well, not a factory, is it?
It's a plant, yeah. They've got a massive plant on the outskirts of
Wembley. Drive past that and see a 40-foot version of your logo and the concrete trucks that are all cladded with it was quite that's quite cool, actually. I like that.
But it's a proud moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose on that as well, that was a really good project. Me and one of my directors went down to the actual company that was spraying the trucks, and we saw it live being put on and testing all the colours. So it's such a strange experience where you're designing and branding for something that is going to be basically driving around the M25. And the interesting choice on the colours, because we kind of wanted to do a hero truck where it really stood out. So 1 in 4 trucks was going to be this hero truck. And we proposed the color Lamborghini silver, which they kind of went for. So the whole truck was Lamborghini silver, and then they had the logo put on top. We had a chance to actually go down to the yard to see them actually put it on, spray it, test the colors out in the light on these brand new, I think they're like £100,000 trucks. And it was just brilliant. And then they had shots of them afterwards, just going around central London. And it's crazy that we just because me and Ian like Lamborghini, we decided wanted to choose a silver, and then it kind of got chosen.
That's pretty insane. What is it like when you are just sort of out and about and you see your designs? Because when I put up a social media post, this is very small scale, but when I put on a social media post for Leicester College and it does well, I am literally like with my friends, check this out, look at this, isn't this cool? Like it must be quite rewarding seeing your designs out and about when you're just doing your everyday stuff.
Definitely. I don't think that feeling wears off though as well. Like you might probably keep it to yourself a bit more as you see it, but it's one of the things that that you feel like you've done a good job, I suppose, that the fact that someone's still using it or it's carried on, and if you've not seen it for a while and you see it again, that it's still kind of stood the test of time.
It's quite nice. It's quite nice, like with some of the university work we've done at the University of Nottingham, where you've designed graphics for like careers events and stuff like that, and then when you visit the university and you see all your work in situ, and then you see the students navigating around it, and you think, well, you're having some sort of influence on their environment, and if you're able to sort of influence their behavior or kind of make, even if you just like a piece of signage that makes someone's life a little bit safer or a little bit easier, even though you don't necessarily have your name on it, just to know that you've been able to have that opportunity to steer and have impact is quite a nice feeling.
Nice. So the next question we've got is, what advice can you give someone wanting to become a graphic designer?
That's a good question.
The hot tips.
I suppose one of the best things you can say is really immerse yourself in what you want to do and how you want to do it. So I would say practice your craft, like Ian was saying, things like drawing. I know it's not a skill that you will use later on, but I feel like it's a skill that will develop and you can use yourself. Just really getting involved in what you want to do and like seeing things that you want to become part of doing. I've seen a lot of people build portfolios on projects and briefs that they've not been given them set themselves and managing to get jobs from them. So I'm talking non-academic route. You can do it. You can come up with these great ideas. Even on Behance, you see loads of people put up projects for companies that they'd love to work for, and they've come up with ideas and they've just kind of exploded and blown up online and been able to get jobs from that. So I suppose passion is massive as well, like in these sorts of scenarios. So I feel like, and never giving up as well, because it's it is a tough industry, I suppose, and I definitely say that if you really want something, you can go out and get it, and put your heart and soul into it, and you can achieve it.
Yeah, I definitely think using your time outside of your academic journey as smartly as possible, because that's a time frame that's running parallel with what you're studying, and it's a time frame and it's a space where you can really sort of teach yourself the really kind of important craftsmanship and approach to it. And I'd recommend reading a lot. I think information is so readily available, and I think try and understand the business of design and understand the industry that you're going into, because that's how you're really going to be able to sort of see a career path. But yeah, I think for me, if I could go back, I'd probably spend less time chilling when I was studying, and more time trying to just kind of develop a few skills that maybe I would be able to cross-sell into my design role, which is we're all trying to do now. So yeah, what you do in your own time, I probably would say is really, really important on building up what you're going to do following your education.
Yeah, just to echo on, I definitely think reading up is fantastic. There's so many books out there, especially if you're part of a college or university. There's you've got your library at hand. You don't even have to purchase them. You know, there's so much things you can kind of learn. There's a lot available online, but meaning still buy a lot of books and use a lot of books as
inspiration. And that's why I wish I'd read them back then, because now I'm buying them and spending money.
Of course.
So, from a more, I guess, like from an immediate practical obvious one is, you know, work on your portfolio from day one as early as possible. And even if you've not necessarily got any amazing final pieces, I think just having pieces that show your thought process is still valid. I think that's really valid. And I think like try and immerse yourself on and find ways to try and understand where creativity and where ideas come from.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I'd say always keep your portfolio up to date as well, because I feel like it can be a struggle to go back after something after so long. But yeah, if you've constantly spent the time to kind of do it every couple of months, it's one of them things that's going to become natural to you, and you're going to be ready as well at all times.
In terms of portfolios and things like that, with social media being prominent, we see quite a lot of design pages pop up now. Do you sort of recommend aspiring designers sort of create like an Instagram account or a social media account for their designs to do that, or is the traditional more private portfolio best?
I suppose it's up to the person, but I'd say why not? You know, it's a free platform. Why not use it?
Yeah, a bit of everything really. You know, don't be afraid to use something if it's available, and obviously it's available free of charge. I know you've got like Behance is a big one, people hosting portfolios, so you can build your own website. Instagram's great, and I still think the future is going to be, you know, looking at people's Instagram capability decks and just sort of seeing what, you know, for them to understand what an impression is and how to use social media, but how social media has become integral to their design process, I think would be quite nice to see. So I definitely encourage, you know, any platform. Instagram's cool because you're documenting that scrapbook approach, aren't you? You know, people are able to look at that and see what's inspiring you. And if you're creating work and sharing it, then I think anyone that does that deserves a pat on the back, just to kind of having the guts to go out there and share the process as well. I think people like to see process.
This is it, especially if you post like say 500 Instagrams and people go all the way to the beginning, they can almost see the progress you've made as well, which is something that's not going to be included in your portfolio. And based on Instagram, if you're going to be able to see immediate reactions to your work as well, putting hashtags and things like that on, you might be able to see it go viral or see it do really well, and that kind of give you an idea of whether to include it in your portfolio. So it's a really good testing ground amongst like kind of common people in terms of like in your industry to see how they're reacting to your work.
Do you know what, if you are going to do that, then make sure you follow lots of agencies, local Leicester ones up and down the country, and comment and just engage with them. If they're posting and that post requires engagement, then just shout out and, you know, comment on work. And the chances are you're going to have a creative director somewhere sat looking at your work. And I know for me the hardest task when 18, 19 years ago when I graduated was everything was done by paper and the odd email. So it was very hard to get under someone's nose. You just went to the admin person who would then filter it off to the creative director. So it was a bit more of a different process. Whereas now you've got business owners that are going to see your work. So definitely get it out there.
I was going to say, just on that, you're going to get a lot of creative directors who've got Instagram accounts as part of the company or part of the agency, and you can go to them direct, like Ian says. And you know, best case scenario, you might get a follow, and then one day you post some work and they really like it, and then you've got an engagement already, and the ability to talk.
So it's also like networking.
Yeah, definitely. Networking is a massive part, I think. Yeah.
I think the way people apply for jobs has changed, and I think the way that people hire has changed as well. So I think it'd be very sort of like, if I was going to do it again, I'd be all over that.
Fab. The next question we've got is more about your day-to-day. So what sort of hours do you work?
So I suppose the agency we work for kind of is quite regimented and really like the family balance life. So it's normally 9 to 5:30 with an hour's lunch in between. I suppose with COVID and the last kind of year, we've all kind of been working from home. So everyone's kind of been flexible towards the requirements, I suppose, to family, etc. But normally it's around 9 to 5:30. But I think Ian will probably agree with me, when you're dealing with creative ideas or creative thought processes and briefs, your brain never really stops working. And that's something you don't have to be sat in front of a computer to be actually interpreting anything or be coming up with ideas. It's one of them things you could just be going to sleep and something could hit you. And it's one of them things, you know, you've got a tough brief, you read it at the end of the day, and you spend the rest of the evening kind of just like kind of battling out in your head how you kind of approach the subject or target.
Yeah, so I'd say we're quite we recognise that we're quite fortunate that the employers that we work for really kind of promote a healthy work-life balance. And Paren and I both have young families, and over the last sort of few years for us, that's been really important to sort of strike that balance. Production time for us is when we're at the machine and working is 9 till 5:30, and to be able to stick to that means that we can give it our all when we're doing that. And then when we're at home, that's when we can sit back and think about briefs and have conversations and step away from the screen for a bit and then allow the ideas to digest. But I know you do hear some horror stories though about working hours, and every place is different. So I think you've really, when you're looking for work, really sort of assess what your values are for you and your family, and hopefully that you naturally navigate towards employers that hold the same values as you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's key as well. Yeah, because you don't want to be working all hours. I think that's just one of the things. Yeah, there's loads of stories of burnout, isn't there, over this kind of past year? People over exerting themselves at home just because they're at home. They feel the necessity to work extra hours, but I feel like the quality kind of dips as well. And I think that's, you've got to kind of keep yourself balanced on them kind of scales.
Fab.
Yeah.
The next question might be a bit trickier since you've both been in the industry for so long, so it all must seem normal to you. But what is something people don't know about your job that may surprise them?
I suppose one of the things is probably just timescales of certain things. So I feel like sometimes people may think that an end piece, say we did a branding for a company, and they see the final logo, they don't know the 3 months that's kind of gone into the R&D of that to engineer to be able to come with that outcome. And sometimes it can be backlash. I know it happened with like Olympic 2012 logo, the London one, where I think it cost X amount of money and people were outraged that someone had spent so much on the logo. But I suppose the thought process behind it and the kind of leading up to it, just seeing the final outcome doesn't kind of show everything.
No, I think people don't necessarily always understand the thought process that goes into it. I think sometimes there is a bit of a perception that, and there are designers out there, every designer is different, and but I think sometimes there's this perception that a designer is somebody who uses a Mac and works in Photoshop, and Photoshop is what makes the idea. It doesn't make the idea, it makes everything, enables you to bring it all together. But there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and the reason that you can kern typography perfectly in 15 minutes is because you've been doing it for 20 years. And I think maybe that's the kind of hidden magic that sort of happens in a design team, that when you work and see it on a daily basis, you begin to build up this sort of subconscious understanding of sort of how that comes together. But I know in my family, people think I just work on Macs and move things around on screens, and it just happens. But I think that kind of surprises people, that we actually use our head a little bit.
I definitely take your thing with the tool thing. I think like the Mac and the programs are tools, really. The computer is only as good as its user, right? So you need to come up with the correct ideas, the correct understanding, and the correct interpretation to be able to kind of perform them tasks, to be able to come with an outcome. So it does require a lot of planning. Yeah.
I'll have to plead guilty to that, because before I sort of worked with our designers, in-house ones, I'll be honest, I thought a designer was just someone who made the image. I didn't actually realize it was everything that you see on that screen is what the designer has done. So the typing, the fonts, the wording, the placement. And then I didn't realize how many different places one design has to go, and how you have to amend it to fit so many different areas for different aspects of things.
I think really kind of live in a world where people's perception of IT is something that does jobs for people or replaces people in the physical workplace, and maybe it is in some instances, I don't know, but I know for us it's like IT doesn't do our job, it just gives us another tool. If we didn't have the computer, then we'd have our pen and paper.
Yeah, it's just a platform, isn't it? It's a platform that we use to kind of be able to get ideas across, and it enables them to do it quick and efficiently, I suppose, and that's kind of the thing. But the thought process is kind of the real hub, and that's one thing that you can kind of do, for free yourself. And that's, when back on your earlier question, what can people do to kind of get into the industries? Constantly have that imaginative thought process going along, and constantly be looking at how can this be better? How can I do this better? How can this? Because there's always room for improvement on anything. You can look at everything and make it better and better and better. It's when you call it time and do it, and kind of, if you've got time constraints, you're going to obviously get an answer. But if you've got a lot more time, you can use that time to invest it and really be able to hone in on the answer.
Yeah, and time runs out because of money, and that's where it's good to understand the business of design, because at the end of the day, people don't have unlimited funds to keep tweaking stuff. So,
okay, we're running out of time, so I'll make this our last question. But roughly, how much would a graphic designer earn?
So I think this would really depend on the kind of level and experience that they have, and where they're based. Because I feel like there's the further north you go, the prices vary to, like, London prices obviously is different wage of living, and it really does depend on the amount of experience that you have, I suppose. So that's the kind of variables that you'd get. And unfortunately, we're in graphic design is kind of an unregulated industry in terms of wage. So it's and there's a lot of small businesses and large businesses that use them, and there's a lot of in-house teams that use them, which have different grade scales, I suppose, as well on that. So it's a really subjective question in terms of how to answer that, I suppose. You could do really well and work for a massive company and become a creative director. Equally, you could do well, work for a small business and own it, and be able to do even more, become even more successful because of that.
Yeah, there's different routes, isn't there? Because you could say, for example, just off the top of my head, if you were going to employ a junior designer, it could be you walking out of university into an £18,000 a year job, which might seem quite low, but unlike other industries, it's not regulated, and that can work in your favor because you can use that as an opportunity to then progress at your pace, not necessarily someone else's. That's up to you. Or you could go down the self-employed route, the freelance route, and then you can't put a figure on that. That's how much effort you put in. But yeah, I think a bit like the work-life balance is that you get a sense of how an agency values the design and how the business is run based on what they're offering people. But I do think there is kind of like, it's not unexpected to have to kind of take a relatively low wage at the beginning of your career, because a lot of people want to be designers, and I think that's just the nature of it. And equally, you can't employ a junior designer and expect them to be at the same speed as a middleweight or a senior designer straight away. So yeah, I think that there's whilst it's painful because it's not regulated and you can't say an exact amount, I think if you turn that into an opportunity and think, well, actually, yeah, I know that the starting part isn't going to be amazing, but what I have got is an industry where it's up to me to either run the business or I'll chase the promotion or keep changing jobs until I get into a happy place. But I think most people sort of realize that it isn't always about the money, but at the start, obviously, it is a deciding factor when you're looking at career choices.
I think one of the things I always say as well is that if you're going to spend 8 hours a day doing something, you need to obviously enjoy it, because you're spending more time awake at a certain place than you are with your family. So obviously, very important how much you earn. Like Ian said, you got juniors starting at 18, you can get middleweight going at 24, and then 30 plus as you get more and more experience. And even if you become a creative director, you can be getting on to 50, 60,000 pounds. But I suppose it's how much you value what you do and your day to day. If you're going to, you could be a financial trader with a heart attack at the age of 25 because you're kind of burning yourself at both ends, and you're not enjoying what you're doing. So that's a key part, is finding the right place to work for again as well. Just you're going to be there for a long, for a decent amount of awake time. You need to kind of enjoy what you're doing and who you're around.
Yeah, without it, every designer is different, every agency is different, and a creative director role in one company may be different to a creative director role in another company. Their clients may be paying a different rate from what this agency is paying. So it's very difficult to say, you can search on Indeed or somewhere and look at kind of search creative director, search middleweight designer, and just almost pull in a load of wages, and that'll probably give you an idea of what is out there for you to go and chase.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. So that is all we have time for. Thank you both for joining us on and answering all these questions and giving us your experience and wealth of knowledge in the industry. So if you do want to check out what courses we offer in graphic design, we do have things from like part-time beginner Illustrator courses to full-time courses and higher education. I'll pop the link in the comments for you to check it out. And if you're still unsure or want to find out more, feel free to message us or contact our careers service, and they can sit with you and find the best route for you to see if graphic design would be the right option. Again, thank you, Ian and Paren. Thanks for joining us. And that is all. So
thanks for having us.
Have a good evening, day, everyone. I'm used to it before.